It's Friday, June 15th, 2007. There are just 509 days left until the '08 election.
It's noon on the East Coast, 9 a.m. on the West.
I'm Will.
I'm Rob.
And this is a very special edition of Political Lunch.
Welcome back to Political Lunch. Joining us today in the studio is former U.S. Senator and now presidential candidate Mike Gravel.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for being here. This is a great lunch.
We're thrilled to have you here. Let's start with an introduction.
Please.
I read your bio, and what struck me was you have an extraordinary record of accomplishment, but you are also a real person, probably more so than some of the candidates you're running against.
Much more than you realize.
You were born in Springfield, Massachusetts.
Correct.
As was I. And you went to a French-speaking Catholic school.
Right, grade school, and then went to Assumption Prep in Worcester, and then 1 year of college there. Then I came back to Springfield and went to American International College.
Really?
And then 1 year there, enlisted in the service. This is the Korean War period. And I went down to infantry OCS, but I also had an MOS and had been educated in the military intelligence service. And so, but for the grace of God, my class went to Korea. A second lieutenants with the PAC said, follow me. And I went to Europe and became an agent and an adjutant for the Communications Intelligence Service.
And you lived in New York City? You drove a cab?
Well, when I came back from the service, I had 2 more years of college to do. And so that's when I decided I'd go to an Ivy League school so I get a really impressive education. So I signed up for general studies at Columbia. And so I worked on Wall Street for Bankers Trust for the first year. And then the second year, I had to fit in a lot of classes. So I had read that Jonas Salk had worked his way through med school by driving a cab. I'd go to school during the day, drive the cab at night, sometimes drive the cab in the day, go to school at night, whatever fit so I could get all my classes done to graduate. And I graduated, drove the cab for a few more months, get some money, got up to Alaska, was broke when I got there, and 12 years later, so I'm sitting in the United States Senate, and all I can say is the secret to that is work hard and be lucky.
Great advice.
Now, you've been highly critical of just about everyone in Washington these days. Is there anyone in leadership in Washington who strikes you as admirable or who stands out as perhaps a role model for young Americans?
No, I don't. None that I see. And I'm not, there may be some out there, but I don't see any. And of course, Lee Iacocca has just written a book. The title is Where Have All the Leaders Gone? Well, I got to tell Lee, hey, Lee, I'm back, and I'm running for president. So, but when you look around, it is difficult. You look at the presidential candidates. Here they're in the Senate, all 4 of them. They have the capacity, as senators right now, to cause the Democratic leadership in the Congress to end this war. It will be tough leadership, and they're not doing it. They're not doing it. The best they can do is have a showboat vote on a water bill and a symbolic vote. And that Hillary and Obama asked leader Reid to put up a vote so they could look good. We're against the war, and we have a symbolic vote, and people are dying. They're dying as we are talking right now, both Americans and Iraqis, and these people are talking about a symbolic vote. That's hypocrisy of the highest level.
Senator, campaigning for president is not a fun thing to do. You've been out of the Senate for a little while. Why now?
Jack Kennedy had a great statement. Running for office is the tough part. Being president is a cakewalk. And I can tell you, I attest to that statement. And why am I running now? 2 reasons. When I left office in 1980, 81, I was really fed up with government, fed up with politics, didn't want to, I wanted to be a private person. The world is such that if we were able to govern ourselves properly, there'd be enough for everybody. There'd be enough for everybody. But we don't govern ourselves properly. So I started looking at it and saying, well, there's only 2 venues for change. One is the government. That's where the problem lies. The other is the people. Now, what we've got to do is people have to have the power to change it. So if the people are ever to get a handle on their lives as citizens in the polity, they have to become lawmakers. And I spent, when you ask what I was doing, I spent 10 years writing, and I've got 16 years of legislative experience. It took me 10 years to figure out the law that will empower the people to make laws, and that's called a national initiative. It's a federal ballot initiative that the Congress will never enact because they'll never want to dilute their power by re-empowering you because you gave them the power. They're not going to give it back to you unless you run them out of office, and that doesn't work very well. So what will happen is the people have to vote for this legislation. They go to the website, nationalinitiative.us, or you can go to my political website, gravel08.us, and on your way to the other website, you can drop a little contribution, what you spent on a latte last week. Just send me that much. That'll increase my voice. But then when you go over to the National Initiative site, you'll be able to vote for this legislation, and we need 60 million Americans because of the process that this becomes law. It's a constitutional amendment, it's a federal statute, and when it becomes law, the American people will be able to make laws in every single jurisdiction of the United States in partnership with their elected officials. The only difference will be they'll be the senior partners.
Now, you mentioned campaign finance. I saw on your website this morning that your fundraising goal for the month of June is $100,000. And then this afternoon received an email from the Edwards campaign. They're hoping to raise $2.3 million by the end of June. How do you compete? And do we need to change the system of campaign finance?
Well, first we need to change it, that's for sure. But he needs to raise 2 million. He won't be able to keep up with me when I get going. All I need, I would guess, is about $10 million overall, and I'll win the presidency with that. See, there's a difference. If you want to take all this money and put it for ads, they need it because they're just repeating the same old crap and business as usual. The most important thing, and this is the most important problem we face domestically. I know people think it's health care, but I tell you, you solve this problem and you'll be able to easily take care of health care and a few other things. The first task of government is to raise revenue. Without revenue, it doesn't exist, so we have anarchy. Now, it can raise revenue basically two ways under our system. You've heard of the flat tax. Well, that's obscene. That doesn't even warrant attention. But you've got the income tax and you've got the sales tax. We all know what those are. It's interesting that there's a misperception of it. The income tax, a few people say that's progressive. Well, the more you earn, the more you pay. But so is the sales tax progressive.
How would you deal with the poor who are affected by this?
Well, that's where the misunderstanding comes in with the sales tax. First off, the sales tax is progressive. If you buy a $2,000 suit, you're going to pay more than a person who buys a $100 suit. So that's progression. But we can make it even more progressive than that by turning around and saying, and you can't give exceptions. You could say, oh, we'll give an exception for food. You can't do that because the minute you give one exception, it's Katie bar the door. The wealth will game the system. Before you know it, in 2 or 3 years, you'll have a code that's 4 feet high, and with the corruption you have today. So what we've got to say is we're going to take the essentials of life, which is food, clothing, housing, medicine, and transportation. And you turn around and you can determine, this is not difficult to determine, you can determine what that cost is at the poverty level for a person or a family of 3 or a family of 4, or what it is for the average American. I like playing with the numbers on that because what you can do is you can turn around, you take the cost of that tax, what you two are going to pay this month for those essential items. We take that sum of money, we divide it by 12, or we take that money for a whole year, divide it by 12, and send you a check every month for the tax you're going to pay that month. Now that gets a cash flow coming to you. Now you go get your paycheck where you work and there's no federal taxes, and you turn around and you now have this cash flow coming at you with the rebate. And for the poor who have nothing coming at them, they now have a cash flow they never had before. And if they don't want to eat as much as the wealthy or as the average American, they do quite well. And that's what you do for the poor. And the income tax doesn't even come close to helping the poor like that. And of course, I could talk about other facets of this, where the economy benefits, where jobs will come back because people will make investments in the country. The academic people who have studied this anticipate that this will bring about a 10% growth. Now, hopefully, we'll have the leadership that won't let it get sucked up by the military-industrial complex, but that will turn around and make education first, provide for health care for everybody, refurbish the transportation structure and the infrastructure of our nation. We've got problems that we haven't even begun to think of addressing, much less addressing them.
Unfortunately, we're out of time for today, but make sure to tune in next Friday for the conclusion of our interview with Senator Gravel. Trust me, you don't want to miss it.
We'll be back on Monday with everything you need to know about election politics.
Thanks for watching Political Lunch. See you Monday.